Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Energy RX. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by my friend and amazing healer, Bobbi Vogel. Bobbi is the founder of the Center for Etheric Medicine. She is a clairvoyant. She is an incredible energy healer. She has the ability to look inside your energy field, see what is out of alignment, and work to heal that before it duplicates into your body. She has a lot of wisdom when it comes to this conversation we're about to have. We're about to have a conversation about working with our heart centers, about even when times are difficult and challenging, being able to come back to this sacred portal that we all have within us, the sacred portal that from thousands of years people have believed is a portal or a bridge between the physical world and the unseen world, and be able to be comfortable living in this space, to feel the sense of safety and security and stability within your own being, while also feeling connected to the universe and feeling the sacredness of life itself. This conversation is intended to be healing, intended to bring hope, intended to be inspiring. And I feel really called to share a card, something that just happened. So when I work with my clients, I often have them pull a card. There's probably close to 1,000 cards that could be chosen. I choose a deck and they pick a card. So this is the card that my client just picked. It didn't actually make sense for her, but what I realized was this was a card to begin this conversation. This is from Rebecca Campbell's deck, the Work Your Light Oracle deck. And this is the card that she chose, and it's called the Initiation. And this is the card about the initiation. Some of the most sacred initiation chambers and temples look scary from the outside, but are breathtakingly beautiful on the inside. This represents the journey that the soul pilgrim is required to take to reach somewhere sacred, but only the initiated can enter. Perhaps that's where you are right now. You are being tested, initiated, because you are headed somewhere sacred. Initiations require that we cross the threshold from one world or state of being to the next. We are called to face what scares us and have to be willing to lose it all in order to gain a new way of being, of safety, of security, of depth, of meaning. Initiations, like rites of passage, mark the shift from one age to the next and can take place because of emotional turmoil, great loss, grief, or devastation. But it is through the seeming hardship that our heart cracks open and our spirit is invested to step forward. We take the sacred voyage into more of who we are and who we came here to be. It can be painful and scary, but once we begin the journey, we can be more ourselves than ever before. If you are in the middle of an initiation right now, you will get through it, and one day soon, you will bless the thing that broke you down and cracked you open, because the world needs you open, and you are going somewhere sacred. It will be worth it, and you're closer than you think. So welcome, Bobbi, to talk about the sacred initiation of working with our hearts.
Thank you. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Thank you. I'm
I
looking
agree.
forward to just having this amazing, insightful conversation with you as well.
I am too.
Yeah.
I know that you have had an initiation and that you have worked with your heart center a lot. So I think that you're such a beautiful example of someone who has had such deep and profound personal experience and understands how to alchemize and transmute and ascend and heal and work with the challenges to become something greater. You're such a beautiful
Aw,
example of that, why you're the perfect person to have this conversation
thank
with.
you. Thank you, Christine. That's really nice. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
true.
right. I think I heard you say on one of your clips, that such a deep truth, which is that every single thing that has happened, and it just came through in a session that I did before this as well, everything that has ever happened up into this very moment, the hard stuff, the easy stuff, if we've talked about many times, is
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of like keeping your heart open to that truth is like life force, and it's faith. It's that faith that, bringing that in, that like, I don't know what all this is about or what has been about, or even in this moment, what this moment is about, but I'm going to breathe into it as the card was saying, and let it guide me, let my heart, which I also, is faith, right? Is that faith that we are
Yeah.
divinely guided light beings here, and, as a sacred human, and to live our soul's intention. And so I know for me, that's what I'm offering as a light, it's because I know so many people. We know there's so much pain right now and so much struggling, and we're all, humanities at a real crossroads, you know, and so offering this, and because, as you know, I just came through. Well, I can't believe it's been 9 months since I've been back from my pilgrimage,
Yeah.
in Italy and England, and yeah, and I was holding on for dear life, as you know, and
Hmm.
that's what got me through was, well, visiting cathedrals, and remembering my own divinity. We have to try to remember our own divinity, or start to understand that we are divine beings. We're on this huge spectrum of knowing that. And so it's an invitation to really, if you're feeling broken or scared or directionless right now, or like you're missing out on something or your purpose, like start breathing into that, just your own compassion towards your humanity, and invite in your own divinity.
I think that's so important right now. And I know you see this in your work, and I see this in my work all the time, of people really being so aware of their physical self, and they're so attached to this idea that I'm just this physical body. And science has now proven that, okay, well, the physical, yes, you're a physical body, but you're 99.99999% empty space, which is, and your energy. So we are these energy beings. But wrapping your head around even the science telling you that you're an energetic being, that you yourself are part of divinity, that you are this energy being, you are this life force, this energy is within you. It is the physical structure, it is the emotional body, it is the energy body. And it's like people feel so unworthy
Mm-hmm.
of claiming that they don't feel like I've made mistakes, or I've done bad things, or I have shame, or I have all of the things that you can say are reasons why you would not be able to claim your divinity. And I think there's a big piece of working with that, of places that perhaps that you may feel out of integrity somehow. And so here's an invitation: is if you're holding some places within your heart center, within your being, where you don't feel like you are in full integrity, because only you know, it's no one else is judging you, you're judging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things you could literally make a list
Well,
of if it's something you needed, if this is something that's, if this was a barrier to you not feeling worthy to claim your divinity, this would be a small practice of, are there, and it doesn't even mean that you have to go and address someone else, or have conversations, but it just can be, you could clear the energy with a situation, you could send love to a situation, you can work with those centers if you feel that you're not in full integrity somehow. I think that that can be helpful in owning your divinity and feeling stable within that.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's so much in there that you just said. I think, it's tough to forgive other people, really. I mean, we can
Yeah,
say it with the words, but the
sure.
resonance of forgiveness, the unseen, the invisible resonance of forgiveness, doesn't happen in the words until it has happened towards ourselves,
Yeah.
anyway. So we can say we forgive, which is honestly, it's easier to forgive outside of ourselves than it is to turn towards ourselves and begin forgiving ourselves for all the things with we did, and I know for me that was my journey. How I ended up here through that pilgrimage was, as you know, shame almost had me jumping off a roof in Italy, for real,
Right.
like almost a
Yeah.
year ago, New Year's Eve. And and so it's been a real road through exactly what we're talking about today. But shame uh makes us collapse on ourselves, collapse in on ourselves. And we're talking about
Yeah.
having an open heart today, or keeping our heart open. So
Yeah.
even when we collapse in on ourselves, we don't have to do anything, but it's just is it's okay, that's going to happen, but to breathe back into like the divinity, and like, okay, I am divinely guided. And it's interesting because you spoke to your clients, being in their humanness and in all of that, and I kind of tend to have the opposite many times, where everything is spiritualized. And that's not a judgment, but it's either people are human. And this just came through in this amazing session with a birth doula, a woman who was delivering babies. And but to come back to, wait, the own if my heart isn't open, number one, to myself, and the fact that I am this human being, yes, by divine design. We're here on our soul's intention. We are the intention of God, as the light of God, as the fractal of God. All of us, regardless of what we're doing, as we know what we're doing in the world right now in this very minute is vitally important. And but to go back from that place of collapsed shame and breathe in uh, the truth of who we are. Yes, we're human, but that this is we're vital. Our humanity is vital to our soul's mission, our soul and God's intention that lives within us as us, God non-denominational, could not move forward without us.
Yeah.
Wow, we are divine, divine beings. And to try to escape being human is not the point. That's not why we're bringing in. We're all spirit and body. We're all,
Yeah.
something funny that has come through the last week from I say the overseer, as God is like, all right, you're all spirit and body. Now get back to work. Like, get back to doing
Yeah.
the jobs that nobody seems to want to do anymore, because they're not seemingly obviously spiritual. This is interesting what's coming through to talk about. So, things that are not within a bubble of being seen outside as a spiritual mission uh, are are vital, and they're not, those positions are not being filled. Is the best way to say it. So what came through literally an hour ago is like, we are at a real crossroads as a collective, as a humanity. Because that's interesting, because you said your clients are this way and my clients are this way.
Mhm.
So there's this imbalance happening right now, where people are either, which is, great. I mean, we're all getting through wounds and in pain.
Sure.
But then there's this whole other side that wants to escape being human and be in the 5D all the time, and talking to spirit, and, living only in this spiritual way, and focusing on that, which is bringing us, we're all out of balance. And so we have to start, we don't, start realizing we are all. spirit and body, and we'll be spirit out of body, and that we are all spiritual beings just by our very existence, and that whatever we're doing in the world is always going to be from a place of spiritual, because that's who we are. We are light. We are the light of God, fractals. That's not a religious statement, as you know.
Yeah.
It's just the truth, boundaryless truth of all of us. And so when we can start normalizing, and breathing into that truth into our hearts, that right now, right in this very minute, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to heal to any certain place. You don't have to berate yourself, be in shame about things. We're here to fall on our face and, create wounds and heal wounds and all the things. And through all of it, we're gifted. We're so vital. We're so unique. And that's what, Jesus was trying to teach right before we see what happened when there was someone in the space trying to, teach who we all are just innately.
Okay, so that really inspires me. There's several things that what you just said that I was like, one, you were talking about how we all are, like God is within us and how God experiences and evolves and grows and learns. I was like, oh, interesting. So we are in fact like the leading edge of God, of like going out there and expanding. I was like, oh, that was an interesting way to think about that, is you are God's leading edge of experience and knowledge and wisdom and growth. And then I had that thought, and I also wanted to talk about, you have all these people who just want to live in 5D and sort of bypass the physical, and it's all love and light. But I would say that this conversation, if you want to move between dimensions and realms, I would say that that portal is the heart. I would say, I would describe 5D as like a place of more like lightness, loving awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are working with your heart center and you want to feel a more lightness of being, that's working with your heart and having, loving awareness for yourself first. And then you can radiate that out and connect into whatever dimension, whatever realm, but this can be the heart as your North Star, that compass.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to address that piece. And I have one other thing, and this is an interesting story. I wasn't sure this would go here, but you were talking about Jesus. And so this is a story that happened many years ago. I was in Los Angeles with some really dear friends of mine. And they're not spiritual. They're religious, not spiritual. They're both Catholic. And he was one of 13 kids, and like Irish Catholic family. And his mother had died when he was like 20. And then he had a younger sister who was 18. And she was this amazing woman, so beloved. And so he had all of his older sisters. And after we had met and became friends, the sisters found, it's like a nice Ouija board. It's called.
Did it say nice Ouija
Yeah,
board?
it's like a nice one. Ouija board. I did a podcast talking about it, and they're legit scary. I would not mess with a Ouija board, but it's called an angel board. So only nice people can come on. You're not going to mess with anyone you don't want to deal with. So his sisters had come across, even being pretty religious, this board, and were having amazing results with this angel board. Like they would get together and ask her questions about their life and get all these answers. And they were like floored. It was the best thing that happened to them. So my friend was like, oh, I need an angel. Even though he was a son, he was like, I need an angel board too. I want to talk to my mom. So he and his wife invited me over one day. They were like, oh, Christine would be game for this. Of course, I'll come and play with the angel board. So we go over and we're playing with the angel board and we're having a conversation with her. And I mean, it has a little thing that you put your fingers close to, but you don't touch, kind of like the little token for a Ouija board. I mean, I can assure you that no one was touching. This thing is moving by itself. Then all of a sudden, the energy in the room transformed, where it had felt still kind of high vibrating, like where something in the beyond is happening. The whole room, it was almost like your ears felt like full, and the room was a little bit spinny. It felt like we had been transported, like something happened. And she said, someone is here. Like we could feel someone was there. And so we said, who's here? And it spelled out Jesus. And
Mm.
all of us are like flabbergasted. We just are thinking we're having a conversation with his mom. And so we all just stood there kind of staring at the board. We were all in shock. We could feel, I can't even describe. Literally every time I see this friends, we talk about it
Yeah.
because it was a life-changing moment for
Yeah.
us. And so I don't remember who asked, but one of us said, well, what can we do? Like, there's a reason that you're
Yeah.
here.
Why we have you
And
here? Can we ask a question?
what, tell us what you want us to do. We'll do anything. Like, what do
Yeah.
you want us to do? And it spelled out BELOVE.
Mhm.
And that has been my mantra. That has been my North Star, my guiding light. That was an absolute moment in my life that changed my life because it's so difficult to do, but it's so simple also. And like the only thing you're really truly asked is to do your best to be love.
Yeah, that's unbelievable story. 100. I mean, yeah, absolutely easy to know is truth, right? And I mean, because
Yeah.
be love is that, I mean, our soul is seated in the heart, right? What we call the heart.
Yeah.
It's the soul space, the physicality of it is the heart, which is the thing that's pumping out to the, to the body, right? To the
Mm-hmm.
extremities, to the organs, as so I'm an ex-paramedic, so all these things. But that is the seat of the soul. So be love is be self, be that self, be focused on, because if you are coming from the place of truth as this soul seated in our humanity, I like, I always get this visual of like, the soul like sitting in one of those big tractors, like those earth movers.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you're doing this to move this way and that way, is like this, the soul seated in this way, um orchestrating and prompting, and can only move the tractor forward, since that's the analogy that we're using, is like, can only get us to put one foot in front of the other as collaboration.
Yeah.
But, how do we know that that's the truth if we don't have a notion of who we are? Right. So right now, so many of us are, a lot of the pain, unnecessary pain, and angst that is out in the space right now, individually and as collectively, is that I don't know who I am, but I know I don't want to feel like this. So whoever this is, I'm trying to escape out of,
Yeah.
and we're trying to leave that behind so that we don't feel pain, when that be love, not be pain. And, do no
Yeah.
further harm, which means be, love, radiate your essence, because we are all connected. We are all each other. That is true. That's not a spiritualized notion. That's God's intention, and it's the truth. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that story, because what what came to mind was, being in Italy again, like that. It changed my whole life, So I talk about it. I actually haven't talked about it a lot, but one day I was in a cathedral, barely breathing, yeah,
Mhm.
literally, and trying to like stay in my faith and stay tethered to that and all the things, blah, blah, blah. And I found myself, so I just went to cathedral. It's all I could do was like find a church or a cathedral, not as a religious, but I mean, what is religion? But anyway, we won't digress or shift off. But I wandered into this side room since we're talking about the heart and Jesus. And I was alone in there. It was a very small area. And Mary, Mother Mary was there,
Mhm.
and Jesus was there. And of course, Jesus had the huge heart here.
Yeah.
And whew, and at the time, I was like, I don't even know if I have a heart. Like, I don't know what's keeping me alive, legit.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was like almost like crawling in there. And I was invited, like, come stand in front of me. Literally, Jesus called me
Yeah.
over there. And here I am in all my shame and all the things that, were out in the space at the time. And I was berating myself and all, just all this stuff. So I was like, who, me? You know what I mean? Like, and I stood, and he said, put your, arms down at first. So I just stood there and locked eyes. And I mean, this, because my heart was so broken and like collapsing on itself that I was like holding like a staring contest with Jesus. And I legit, from that heart, from the chest, Jesus's heart came and started literally energizing my heart. And I just started breathing like that, and I didn't take my eyes off, and I came into like prayer mode like this, and I had tears, and I was fixated, like frozen like a statue. I was motionless, and I, with my eyes closed in the depth of pain, shame and all these things, I heard people starting to come into the room. It sounded like a mom and like her son or something. And I had the thought to, put my hands down and, keep moving, or I don't know why. But
Yeah.
in that moment of such beauty and truth and being healed by Jesus, the heart to heart, like soul to
Yeah.
soul. It was soul to soul ignition. I heard, as right before I was going to put my hands down to not look like a weirdo, Jesus said, care not what anyone thinks. And I stayed there receiving, like, imagine. And I'm speaking like, because a lot of people are in this place
Yeah.
right now, that I, in that moment, would have cared. I'm getting a healing from Jesus in a cathedral
Yeah.
in Italy, and my
Yeah.
shame and my give a shit about anyone else almost had me end my session with Jesus. Like, that lets you know the depth that we can go into shame, and it's okay. It's okay, but there's a way out of it, and it's through forgiving yourself first. As also came through, I have the picture here. Sanctify yourself, God said when I had my hand on the wall. Sanctify yourself. This is a message for everyone. Look it up. I had to Google it. But really, it's like sanctify, like forgive. Like, what are you going to do about anything that has already happened? And if other people's hearts are so closed and collapsing on themselves that they want you to feel shame, then that's on them.
Yeah. You can just wish them, you can just
Yeah.
send your love and let them go.
Because nothing, nothing, nothing is worth a closed heart, because it is what guides us, because your heart is your soul. Your soul is seated there.
Yeah. So, talking about the heart, that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. That's a really sacred moment in your
Yeah,
life. So, I
really
want
for
to
sure.
really acknowledge and that's really a precious thing to share with us.
Yeah,
So, thank you for
yeah,
sharing
for
that.
sure.
Um, it's beautiful. Um, you were talking about the heart. You were talking about the heart pumping blood and being in your heart. And I think one of the practices that people can do, if you're thinking this all seems like a great idea, but this is really difficult, it's really difficult, how do I put this into action, how do I actually begin this, there are things that I don't know that I'm ready, that I can forgive myself, and I can't just snap my fingers and do it, so I think there are some ways that you can begin to work with the center in a tangible way that can, and if you have the desire, you have the interest, you will find a way. But the Heart Math Institute is a great place to, it's like heartmath.org, and they've done so much research on the heart so much more than what we used to believe. For like 300 years, we always believed the heart was, a pump, like it was round and it gets nutrients and oxygens and all of the things. Well, it turns out it's so much more than just a pump. So the heart has its own neural network.
Hmm.
It's literally has 40,000 neural cells that are called sensory neurites. And these neural cells within your heart can hold memories, make decisions from. Your heart is actually sending more messages to your brain
Hmm.
than your brain is sending to your heart.
Hmm.
And so your heart then also, it's really actually not even shaped this way. It's actually a spiral, and it vortexes, and it's sending out all of this blood and nutrients
Hmm.
and oxygen and all the things, but it's also sending out hormones, oxytocin, the love, the feel good hormone.
Hmm.
There are other hormones it's sending out. So, how do you work with this? How do you work to bring this into a state of balance? The goal is sort of to balance the heart and the brain. And this is what heart math is working on, to have a unification between your heart and mind, because your clarity organ, it's good and bad, right and wrong. That's where a lot of the beliefs, around shame and all of these ideas, I'm a bad person,
Yeah.
or I'm not a good person, or I am a good person. So there's polarity. So it's the idea is the heart is multidimensional. The heart sees beyond the polarity. So here's one practice that is from Heart Math, and you can go look it up. Another person who's great to listen to talk about this process is Greg Braden. I don't know if you ever follow Greg Braden. He has some great information about this. There's a breathing practice where literally you're having a hard time, your heart is hurting, you're feeling grief, you don't know what to do with that energy. This is something that you could maybe start your day with in the morning, or set in a timer for an alarm to do this once a day. And it really is actually just touching your heart. And maybe you only feel like you can use 2 fingers, or you can use 3 fingers, or you can use your whole palm, but touch your heart and then close your eyes and come into your inner realm, this inner space that where your spirit lives. And you can even sort of begin to feel a little bit boundless when you come into this inner space. But you literally just breathe, and you breathe in slowly and you breathe out longer. I'm not going to go through the whole process because you can look it up. And you have this intention of connecting your brain to your heart. So you can begin to perceive the world around you and then interact with the world from this unified kind of organ, having this connection between the brain and the heart, so that you are not seeing everything in the polarity of the good and bad and right and wrong. You're seeing it from a multidimensional perspective. It's all woven together. And then your heart, it can begin to also help release some of the residue. It can begin to release some of the hurt slowly, gently. It doesn't have to be an overnight transformation, and change doesn't happen overnight. And enjoy the journey of it. And you can bring playfulness into it. It doesn't have to always be serious, You can think, I'm transforming my heart center. I'm coming into coherence. Indigenous tribes used to say the longest journey a human can take is the journey from your head to your heart.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it's 18 inches,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the longest journey when you begin to live this heart centered life.
Yeah.
But it's more than just coming here. It really is having this connection here, this intelligence, this heart intelligence woven into your mind. And because I think electromagnetic the electromagnetic field of the heart is one of the strongest. I don't know too much about it, but it's when it's measured, it's incredible. So this really is our guiding light, our heart center.
Yeah. And I mean, when I say, so I learned that thank you. I mean, there's so much in there. Breath is the first, back that reminds me of all those years ago. There's a video on my website or YouTube, whatever, breathing the light. God
Mm-hmm.
taught me that myself 9 years or so ago, whatever. But the breathing, breath is so vital because the oxygen that's for the physical is light for the etheric. My practice is called etheric medicine, and that was the beginning of my teaching, my spirit, God teaching, and my guides, and let's say remembering my soul, my humanity, remembering what it is I came here for, and what I already know, which is true for all of us. We're equipped already. But that the breath it sounds too simple, but we've come to a place where, well, isn't there a supplement to open my heart? Isn't
Right.
there a course I should take? Or, I mean, you can intend it with your breath, and that's showing that's love, that's self-love, and the breath is just so vital because it's also light, and without light, which is who we are first, and our physical body is the hologram and the intention of the soul. It's the blueprint
Yeah.
of the soul with the collaboration of God. And then there we are in this physicality, and we have this thing we call the heart, which I know, as I said, to be the soul. So of course there's going to be massive electromagnetic. The soul cannot be seen or scanned, but the heart can. Right. So that's where
Right.
we're at, is we can't see what is invisible, but what is invisible is more real, and is actually what created your physicality, is the etheric realm, everything that came through the soul lifetime. All the lifetimes are now converged into this energetic space, the etheric space where the soul resides. The
Yeah.
heart is the center of us. That is who the etheric. And so, but because we're human, we have to have words, but we don't have words in spirit. Because the truth is so simple, we don't need them. It just is that. It just is the truth. So we don't have to have all this explanation with all these fancy words. But the heart, the soul, it's the soul. You can't see it. So, we had to create this physical thing called the heart, that we can relate to and see, because if we don't see, we don't believe. Right. If there was nothing there that was pumping, just pumping blood, and we could see, like, what is pumping, like, what's that life force, I don't know, I can't see it, like, we would get so hung up on that.
Yeah.
So we have to have the physicality of our, the fascia is another thing. Like, we are we are, I learned so many things working so in depth with cancer, density being called
Right.
cancer. And this is one of these truths for all of us, and which is, yes, the soul is seated. Yeah, worked a lot with this in Ireland recently in the group. The soul is seated there in the heart. The heart has to be the physical manifestation, or we wouldn't understand even how we're existing, period. Uh, but in working with the layers of the density called cancer, and following thousands of sessions, like, how did this come to be? It didn't start in here. It started way out here, right?
Right.
Like way out, sometimes in past lives, and this, and but and then it's our false beliefs are creating in our wounds and all the other things. But what I came finally to understand after being spirit taught and beginning to work with animals and then talking to trees and then hearing from the earth, and is that from that center, the heart, the soul, that is doing everything you just explained, is literally truly connected to the same thing that is emanating from every other being, seen and unseen, physical, non-physical, every animal, every tree, every blade of grass, every flower, every sentient being, every stone, are emanating the same. It is all coming together. And so how do we heal ever really truly if we don't understand how true that is? It's the only way we're going to heal. And so breathing into the heart and doing whatever we can do to really, yes, we've all been through so much.
So I want to illustrate this. You said that the soul really resides in the heart. Like this is this connection. So of course the electromagnet you would have so much energy and
Yeah.
electromagnetic current running around there. I just had this memory. So in Chinese medicine, which I don't think you've studied, I've studied a bit.
Well, I mean,
There,
yeah, kind of.
yeah, there are three kinds of energy, and I forgot the third one. Qi, that's your vital life force energy. There is another one, I can't think of the name. Essentially, it's like what it has to do with is like you have a certain kind of energy that you could be someone who like smokes 4 packs of cigarettes, eats bacon, and drinks like a fish, and you never get sick and you die when you're 104. And you just were born with this kind of energy. Or you could be like super healthy and have all kind of health
Mm.
challenges. It's just like this kind of you have this certain life energy that you're born with. But the third kind is called the Shen, and that's your spirit. And in Chinese medicine, the Shen lives in the heart.
There you go.
I had totally forgotten that.
Yeah.
That just came in. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's the truth. I mean,
yeah,
this is at least what I try. I know, you have your own practice, but what I try to, I don't even like the word teach, but what I try to reveal, is not, we think of it as spiritualized, and it really, like, I laugh with God and the guides sometimes, and people on the other side, because we as humans, like, we put so much on things that are not, important or even matter. But like, what does spiritual mean? Like, why, what does that even mean? If we break it down and think about, what does that mean? We're spirit and body. There's no place to get to that. It already is that,
yeah.
just because that's who we are.
Yeah. And I like that you the word reveal because it is you come in here with amnesia, you forget. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of that's part of being leading the edge, the leading edge of God as you come in, you've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten what you are.
Yeah.
And then you sort of hope that over this journey, this sacred journey that you take, that who you actually are reveals itself more and more and more. And that's part of this journey. And you are remembering as it's being revealed, you're remembering the sacredness of what you actually are.
Yeah. Well, and during that revelation, it's important to be in the now, instead
Yeah.
of the focusing on whatever reveals. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's where faith comes in, which I am, tethered to, is how I have gotten through pretty much everything. It is just to know regardless of where you're at, however you're feeling in this very moment, which is a lot of things for a lot of people. There's a lot of broken hearts, especially we're coming up on the holidays, you know. They're not easy for me. I know that, right? But I have myself, I have love, I have pride, I have, guidance, I have the moment that I know is divine. And
Yeah.
and I think, what I one of the other simple tools is, you were talking about the heart. What is it called? You were Greg Braden, the heart.
Greg Braden. Oh, heart math. So it's unifying. It's unifying the heart and the mind.
Yeah. So there's those tools. But for me, what shifted, I won't go through the whole story, but really just this moment in time for me on that roof in Italy, that put life back in me, was that moment where I just and I put my hands on my heart, like you were saying,
Yeah.
and I said, I love you and I got you. And what do you need in this moment? What can I get you? And I was speaking to my little girl who thought, she was a piece of shit and had, screwed up everything. And, I was believing all that, which is why I was going to jump off that roof. But in that moment I realized, like, it was revealed to me through God, non-denominational, with my guides and my parents, in spirit around me. And I had to, as we all, it's not just me, we all have to get to that place where we simply love ourselves. Like, you crawl to it, like was, and be in that, like, hey, but I love you. And what else matters?
Yeah.
Because without that, you can't live you can't function from the intention of the soul being folded on yourself, on your own heart. I keep doing this because it's literally like an energetic. What if you went and grabbed your heart and squoze it like this and you didn't let it go? We would die.
Right.
So really, in etherically, because that's the truth of who we are more so than physical, that's what we're doing. We are squeezing our heart. It's not pumping back to life. It's that squeeze, that folding on itself. If you got in an accident and somehow you folded, something blunt traumaed your heart, like I've seen as a medic, you're gonna cease to exist in the physical form. But it is that intense within us that we can be sitting straight up like this, but if we are folded over in shame or not knowing who we are, lack of love, or caring what other people think, man, that's the greatest weapon that we use against each other and why do we do that? Why do we do that? And when knowing that we are each other. I am you, you are me. I am that tree. I am all the things, as are you. Why would I want to hurt myself if I wanted to do that and make someone else fold on themselves? that that truth in the etheric folding on the over on the heart is why you're in so much pain. And that's what you can't, you're not having the awareness of, like, you may as well physically be squeezing your heart and keeping it, your life force, your blood and oxygen,
Yeah.
from moving through your physicality and keeping everything, your brain alive and everything else. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And you know what this makes me think of? And you're talking about your heart closing in on itself, and you're talking about, you know, almost just getting armored and shut down and held down. And I think that one thing we've all noticed, and a lot of this comes from computers and the way we live, but literally you see people folded in on themselves, right? Like physically pulled
Yeah.
forward so much. So I mean, and that's guarding, it's protecting. Like, you know, heart, like doing some heart openers, you can do
Mhm.
yoga to actually, here's, I think, one step to working with your heart center is getting, again, your intention is so important of I'm opening my heart back up and breathing into this space. You can stretch in doorways, open up, try to get this center aligned and open so you're not folded in physically on yourself, because we've all seen that. I particularly worry about teenagers a lot because they're on their phones. Like
Yeah.
lean forward, like with my daughters, I'm like, open up, open up. So I don't want their hearts, closed inlet this way. Like you want to stand up proud of who you are. You want to stand up tall
Well,
and let
embodied
your heart be
shame.
open.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. But let
Embodied
and I,
shame does that.
yeah, that it pulls you
Yeah.
forward. But that I would say is another tip. If you're working with your heart
Yeah.
center, is physically
Open.
working to open this area can help. Breathing, what Bobbi is saying about breathing into the heart. This is a really interesting thing I just heard about breath, because you've talked about breathing in the light, breathing in the energy. And I'm fascinated by quantum biology. And for the first time ever, someone was talking about how they're now, it's not totally proven, but as you breathe in, you're actually breathing in also electrons.
Yeah.
And so, what's electrons? Energy. I mean, so I like when you can have some of the science to back up some of the esoteric things that we're saying. That's something new. I'm just not told. I have to dive into it more, but it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that you would be.
I
Anyhow,
guess no,
I
I love
digress.
that. That's amazing. It's amazing, but again, look at uh, you, even knowing what you know, you just said it's great to have the science to mix with the esoteric. So because yeah, they're reminding me of a little download I got. I swear it was like from Freud, or I don't know who, I forgot, but or Einstein. Science is limited to the least
Mhm.
limited human mind. So why does science trump what we think is esoteric, which is more true than the science? The science couldn't
Yes.
exist without the truth of us. The unseen part of us must be revealed in science so we can believe, and know. But so I'm just saying, so who we really are is being branded as esoteric, or the conversation around it, when nothing else would exist without the presence of the invisible us.
That is very true. And I have to touch on that. You talked about Einstein. So, do you know Einstein's greatest theories of, like, the theory of relativity? They would come out, he would literally go into sort of a meditative state. It wasn't like he was sitting at a blackboard
Mm-hmm.
coming up with these things. It came from that liminal space of meditation, of like an awareness dropped in, as opposed to it downloaded, it dropped in, as opposed to I sat and worked it all out, which is backing up what you're saying.
Or yeah, amazing. Or it just came from his heart, his soul in the
Yeah.
heart. And we think about things are dropping in, and it's really they're just dropping out. Maybe think about it like that. It's like they're
Oh,
dropping
interesting. Yeah.
out. I know for me, since for instance, my healing, my damn near jumping off a roof and going as far down as I could in that my pain, and then I did what you said, is like I sat up from this moment, which is a whole story, but which you've heard, but it was from that gasping air and reigniting and breathing and CPRing my human, but that heart opening, it was almost like everything that my heart was folded over, even though I was doing all this amazing work in the world and, blah, 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 and all the things. I was still, and I didn't know that, as most of us don't know that in this very moment, that if we're folded over in shame or any guilt or lack of self love and all the other things in the space,
Mhm.
we are trapping, because our soul is the eternal brilliance, right? That comes in with the plan and all that, and everything. When I did that and I said, I love you, I got you, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you're amazing, and it's okay that all those things happened. You did the best that you could,
Right.
and I forgive you. And what was trapped in my soul space, my heart space, were all these exponential gifts. And it pop when I was able to, I mean, I wouldn't have thought, right? So it everything was released. And in a time where most, with the collective, right, is we're so obsessed right now with, you know, being psychic or clairvoyant and all these other things, but your humanness is holding the shame, which is the folding over on the heart and in the soul. And that is where all the brilliance is already is. You see, it's not an outside learning
Yeah.
in a, you know, course necessarily, or,
Yeah.
those may trigger memories perhaps, but it is an information that it isn't already in the collective, right? But since we all have access to, like, I've hung out with Einstein at times and asked questions, and because you wouldn't talk about spiritualized, how his brilliance was really from the soul and not this brilliant human mind, because we don't talk about that. The point is, like, whoever's listening in this very moment, you included, but whoever is, like, hey, you already have all that you need within you. It is not outside of you, because those are the nonverbal, that's the brilliance that can just, hey, remind you of who you are as well. But the brilliance is already within us. It's just, we're just this circle of life, this game, this, going around and healing the things to reveal who you really are. That's the whole point. It is the circle of life, to find your way back to center, to who you are right here. It's all by design. It's not you can't get a fast pass. Like, all the
Yeah.
trauma, all the pain, all the shame, all the this, all the that. It's all like, keep going, keep finding your way back to the self.
That takes me back to the card that I read as we started the whole process off here, the whole conversation about this initiation, that these times and these periods where you do feel this great grief and loss and, the shattering of your heart also opens you up to a whole new way of being in the world. It initiates you into something else, something that your soul is calling you towards.
Yeah. And absolutely. And, like, to try to just tell yourself, I love you, but and it's not a, I don't, I'm sure this would upset a lot of people, but I've recently had some people who are Catholic, and they're struggling, to try to be more spiritual. There's that word again. They have to
Mhm.
leave being the human Catholic who believes in, you know, God outside of themselves as a punisher or someone that you should be, demerits and shame, which is so far from the truth. I'm sorry. It
Right.
just is. Just, I think the main point was to know that in this very moment, regardless of how you're feeling, what you're doing, you are the light of God, and that is a intelligence and an unseen. It isn't a white guy in the sky. I say the overseer, the supervisor, because
Mhm.
if we are the intention, which we are, the intention of God to exist in physical form, which we are, everywhere, all over the whole world. The intention, all of us are the intention for God's experience and do and be and create and serve. we are serving all, missions, and no matter who you are, what you're doing
Yeah.
is good enough. Your sheer existence is good enough.
That's a beautiful thought to have, that your sheer existence is good enough. Bobbi, I'd love for you to tell the story because I don't think we talked about this in our first podcast, but we've talked about it. And you told a story about witnessing somebody who had just died and the message they gave you um, about crawling.
Oh, crawling to joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could narrow it down. Um, yeah, gosh, just a couple, maybe 4 months ago, it was actually
Mm-hmm.
one of my good friends' mother-in-law. Um, she, so it's important piece of the story. So she was showing up to me. I was not with her or anything. I'd never met her or anything, but, I was walking the beach. My friend called and said, Scott, her husband, had to fly back to where the mom was because the mom was now, she had been diagnosed with cancer and was in the hospital. And so many times when a soul is asked, would like me to communicate on their behalf, they'll just drop in, which is what she did. And I was literally walking the beach, as I said, and she was showing up to me as this svelte, woman with coiffed brown hair. And, so that's who I was, she was showing. So that's who I was envisioning. And, so she was funny. I won't tell the whole story, but she literally she didn't want to go to hospice. She didn't want to go to a nursing home where they were suggesting she go. And she had a lot to heal with her son. So, which she did, and she wanted to set him free and all this beautiful thing. So, one of the things she said was, well, I'm going to die at 12 o'clock your time, which is Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to orchestrate that. So, the beautiful truth, about that is, when we're ready to cross, even though we're in the physical and we're even talking or breathing, we start accessing the higher self. And the higher self, our spirit, knows the power that we have, and there's no limitations. And so she started playing with that in that field and saying, you know what? I'm going to leave at, da da da, watch me, and she started feeling a sense of relief from what was a miserable life, as it turns out. And, she wanted to start playing with her power because she was like, oh my gosh. So, long story short, towards the end of that conversation, I actually got in the car and I drove an hour to a thing that I was going to, and I was about to hang up with my friend. And so there was 2 hours of download, of communication from her mother-in-law
Yeah.
and all kinds of beautiful things. But she said, hey, I was about to hang up. She said, hey, ask her to send a picture of me. And I was like, rando. So I said, Laura, do you have a picture of her? And she said, yes, Scott actually just sent me one. He's in the hospital room. And he took a picture of his mom and had sent it. And so I parked the car and then I looked at the picture and I was like, whoa, drastically different woman than what was showing up. Very heavy set and just the misery and the pain, on her face, and years of not caring about herself and her health, and because she felt shame, carrying shame about how she had parented and how she showed up as a mother and all the other things that was being held there. And so I was stunned by that, and I was like, wait, was that the, like, who's this? And she told me, I used to be really happy. That's who I'm showing you, is like, I was that. Scott has a picture of me that looks like this. So you can ask him for that, which I did, and he had it. But everything we're talking about today, which is probably why you asked me the question, because she got so caught up in shame, she folded on herself. She ceased to exist as a vital divine being with, the ability to forgive herself, or, all the wounds, and she didn't heal. And everything we're talking about today manifested into this really overweight woman who now, was at the end of her life. And so she explained that, that I was this and then I turned to this. And so I had to go do the thing that I was a workshop, a gathering that I was going to. And I was going to be there at 12 o'clock. So I wouldn't, but I told Laura, she said she's going to leave. If they take me, and she said, sorry, she just reminded me, if they take me to, I'd rather die right here, but in the room. But if they take me to the nursing home, I will die right when I get in the door, because I don't want to be there. And so, of course, they packaged her, and the hospital wanted to get her off their hands. Um, I didn't know that. I went in my thing, I turned my phone off, and when I got a lunch break, it was like 12:30. I quick looked, grabbed my phone to see if Laura had called, and she said at 12:15, she said she just passed away. And the she's the woman, the mom said, "Sorry, I was late dying. We got caught in traffic." And I told Laura, I said, she said, "Sorry, she's like, holy shit. Scott, said they got caught in traffic and they got there
Oh, yeah.
late. So, right. And she died right when they loaded her off the ambulance.
Okay.
And so there's the power. That's the piece of the power there. But that night around 2 a.m, she popped in on me. And this is what you're asking about. And I was like, hey, like, now you're in your review, you've started your review, no doubt. Looking back, like, what would you have done different? What could you have done differently? Is there, because we learn so much as we witness our choices and stuff. And she
Yeah.
said, even if every single day, even if I had to crawl my way to joy, I would have done it, because it would have changed my life and it would have healed my heart.
Yep.
And such simple, profound, free, joy's free. Nobody should be able to take that from us. If we can
Yeah.
think about it in that way, like what's coming through is like how harshly we judge people. I mean, this isn't a negative, it's the truth. Look at social media. People are horrid for no reason to each other on social media, sitting behind why? Why? We want to ask our own hearts, why? Why do we wish that on anyone? Because we're wishing it on ourselves. And so we know that that's probably, going to be something that we exist with, unfortunately, because people are wounded, and, that's just what it is. But when we realize that, like, if we let anyone steal our joy, or we close for, what, allow them to let us fold over our own soul as self, or being called heart, what is worth that? If it's just joy that would change your whole life and that would keep you in center in your own life force, good luck, right?
So I think that's a really important piece that I'm so glad you just brought up, that people can be mean. That's just the reality of being here. You may be on social media or somewhere that people are just can be unkind. And so I I think you'd agree with me here, that you can have an open heart and be wide open, and yet at the same time have boundaries. Understand that there are people who maybe you don't want to interact with very much, or you do sort of have to shield yourself in some way, but you don't have to armor up your heart. You can have firm boundaries with people, and also being mindful about what you're taking in terms of your media. Does the news make you upset? Do you follow people on social media who don't make you feel
Mm-hmm.
good? I mean, being mindful about the what you're digesting, not just in terms of food and exercise and those pieces, but what's the information coming in, and how does that make your heart feel? Does it make it feel expansive, or does it contract it? Because the goal is to sort of expand and not contract and fold in on itself. So I would just invite you to re-examine perhaps if you're someone right now who is struggling and feeling like your heart is shutting down, or you're feeling grief or pain, just being mindful and protective of yourself, of the information that you're bringing in.
Or limit. I mean, and I'm going live in 10 minutes on IG, but like, yeah, but to limit, really do limit. And here I'm saying I have to go live because if I didn't make myself get on social media, I wouldn't. And I'm not saying this to be negative, but like that is such a massive detriment. And but it created addiction outside of the self again. And the risk that you take engaging, because it's an energetic, like it's literally, and it's an energetic charge. You're opening your heart to things that may or may not be in your highest good, and all the things like why is that worth it, and also seeing, getting more information to shame yourself with, or I'm not good enough, or I'm less than, or I don't have a donkey, or you know, now I need to get some chickens. Like I have to sell
The
my house so
donkey.
I can get chickens. Like, I mean, seriously, we're laughing because we have to laugh at ourselves. Like we have to laugh at how ridiculous we are. But protect yourself. If you do nothing like hope, I love you, and limit yourself. But addiction is real on social. Like
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
everybody of all ages. I work with people who are in their 80s who are feeling horrible about themselves, and they're still trying to figure out, how do I become a tarot card at 80 or whatever? I'm not living a mission.
Right.
Like, what are you thinking?
Oh my gosh.
Yo. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
So I know we need to wrap up. I have a few more things I want to add in, just some tools and a couple tips. There is a meditation song that, if you're dealing with something with your heart, that I think is so beautiful, and it's on Spotify, wherever you get your music from. If you're working with your heart center, it's the holidays and you're feeling sad or you're feeling grief. It is by David Staffire, Ram Dass, and it's called Alchemy of the Heart.
Mm.
And it's a beautiful meditation, and it helps you. It literally will walk you through with this beautiful, soft music. And there's an extended version that's like 15 minutes, and then a shorter one that's 3 minutes. And you can do a beautiful heart meditation to clear out residue of past hurts and past traumas, breathing in loving awareness. So that's something, it's very healing. It's very beautiful, because it comes up in my song list all the time with my work. I had played it. That was my number one song. I'm not
Mm.
surprised. I always play It's Divine DJ. It's like my playlist is like 17 hours
Oh,
long,
wow.
and that song comes
Nice.
on all the time. I think I had played it 83 times last year.
Well, you should send
Um,
me your playlist.
oh, I'm happy to. But so that's a beautiful meditative song to work with your heart. There is also a plant medicine that's not psychedelic, that if you're working with your heart, it's called Bobasana. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's an Amazonian plant, and people will do like a Bobasana dieta. I haven't done a whole dieta with it, but I really love working with my heart center. And so I often will add it in, and I'm very intentional with how I use it. It's not psychedelic at all. It's like using any kind of herb or something like that. But it's known as being a heart opener and working with your heart energy. So there's another little tip and tool for working with your heart center. You could Google it, see if it resonates with you. And I do want to leave with, because you were talking about this story about this friend's mother, or the mother-in-law, about her, regrets. She wished she had crawled to joy. If only she could have crawled to joy. And I love that
Well,
piece of
she
that.
didn't regret it because it's not possible. Like we know better than that in spirit. It was just a true reflection. I guess
Mm,
I needed to just say like we don't
yeah.
have regrets. We only look at what would have been different.
Okay. And that story has really stuck with me. I wish I would have crawled to joy.
Yeah.
So for millennia, indigenous people, ancient people knew about the importance of the heart center. And there was something in ancient Egypt called the ceremony of the heart. And all of the ancient Egyptians knew this, the importance of living from this heart center. And the ceremony of the heart that's in the Egyptian Book of the Dead is, once you had died, there was this period where you met with Anubis, who was sort of the god of the dead, the god of many other things. But you have a scale, and it's a scale of Mot, and there's a feather on one side, and your heart is on the other. And so your heart, you knew when you died, your heart was going to be weighed, and you needed to have your heart as light or lighter than the feather to go to where you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you think about the ceremony of the heart, they was a practice for the ancient Egyptians
Well,
to work with their heart. Keeping your heart light
I
was something that was
that's
important.
interesting. I've never heard that. Thank you. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't I'm spirit taught, so I just wait, but that's a
Yeah.
great teaching, and I would imagine that as I was saying, your physical heart is that manifestation of the density that is in the etheric, right? So when we heal, that because it is our soul's intention, it lightens our heart because our heart is our soul. And again, the heart being the physical manifestation of the soul. And so it would make sense that your heart, they would weigh your heart at death, your physical heart, because it's the representation of how light, how much did you heal, how much did you love, how much did you find your way to
Mm-hmm.
joy, and how did you serve, would show up in the weight of the heart. Probably I would, that's what's
Yeah.
coming through, is like that makes absolute
Yeah.
sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they actually weighed each heart. It was
Well,
sort of it was, yeah,
right.
but that was something that Egyptians knew, that in the etheric, your heart was going to be, the energy of what you're
Yeah.
carrying in your
Yeah.
heart is going to be weighed against the feather. So we are going to leave all of you with loving awareness, working towards keeping our hearts as light as a feather.
Yes. Thank you,
Yay.
Christine. This is
Thank you,
great.
Bobbi, for coming on and sharing your deep, beautiful wisdom. I'm very grateful for your
Yeah, I
time.
love this conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And sending all of you love and light, and yeah, I love you. I love you. Breathe into your heart. All right. Goodbye, everybody.